A lady named Gwen decides to work the night shift at an old motel to make some money. While inspecting the facility, she sees a pool with a sinkhole at the bottom. As she tries to go closer, she falls into the empty pool and suddenly sees a ghost coming out of the hole. A few hours earlier, Gwen arrives at a motel where she plans to work the night shift. After picking up her special necklace from her car, she goes to the motel's front desk. But she doesn't find anyone and looks worried because the place seems creepy. She eventually heads out to see if she can find anyone, but she then notices that the door to one of the rooms is open. After checking it, she suddenly bumps into a guy named Teddy, who happens to be the motel owner. They both get startled, but Teddy then introduces himself to her. As she says she's the one who called him about taking the night shift, he looks surprised that she came in earlier than expected. However, he takes her back to the front desk and thanks her for agreeing to do the job despite the short notice because his regular staff couldn't make it to work. He says he would have done it himself, but he has a date he can't afford to miss. Gwen then asks if he'll pay her cash, and he says he will. He also asks if she's new in town, and she says she just came in from Ashford that day. Teddy finds this surprising, and he asks if she came with family, but she says she's alone. As they're talking, the bear head wall art in the lobby called Yogi falls to the ground. Gwen looks scared, but Teddy tells her it's nothing serious. After getting her to help him put it back up, Teddy tells her that even though the motel looks creepy, there's nothing wrong with it. He also adds that the place used to belong to his grandparents, and he hasn't changed anything since he inherited it. Just then, he shows her his future plan to make the motel better, and even potentially turn it into a franchise. Gwen doesn't seem really interested in this, so Teddy decides to take her on a tour of the motel. As they're moving around, he shows her what the rooms look like. But while checking them, Gwen sees a rat in the toilet and looks disgusted. Shortly after, Teddy tells Gwen that she'd have to clean some of the rooms, and she happily agrees to do it. Teddy then takes her to see the supply room. As he opens the door, though, he tells her that she'll have to use a brick to hook the door because it only opens from the outside. While she's then waiting for him to set up the supply room, Gwen sees where the pool is, so she heads there. However, she sees a sinkhole in the middle of the pool. Just then, Teddy shows up and says the sinkhole suddenly appeared and sucked in all the water. As he also mentions that it's a good thing no one was swimming at the time, he adds that the authorities are coming to close it by the weekend. A while later, Teddy takes Gwen back to the front desk and says he has to leave. He asks if she has eaten, and as she says she hasn't, Teddy suggests a place where she can order something to eat. Before he leaves, Gwen asks if there's any kind of security at the motel, but Teddy says there's nothing to be worried about. He also jokes that there's an axe next to the vending machine if she ever needs to use it. As she still seems concerned, Teddy tells her that if she feels unsafe, she can lock herself inside the lobby. Suddenly, they start hearing rats moving around, but Teddy tries to make it sound like it's not a problem. However, as he notices that Gwen is not too happy with the rat situation, he offers to pay for her food so she can stay for the night. After a while, she then watches him leave. As she's about to return to her desk, Gwen sees that there's someone in room 6. After going through the records book, she sees that there's someone named Alice lodged in room 6. Following this, Gwen goes to meet the lady to introduce herself as the person currently at the front desk for the night shift. Alice only opens the door slightly as she doesn't seem to care about what Gwen is saying. As Gwen then notices a red dye on her hand, Alice just locks the door and returns to what she was doing. While Gwen is walking back to the lobby, she notices that the window and door to one of the rooms are open, so she enters to lock them. She then goes to the supply room to get some things she'll use to clean one of the rooms. While she's leaving the supply room, she sees a strange car passing by the motel. After watching the car move away, Gwen enters room 8 to clean it. While cleaning the room, she has to use a pair of scissors to pick up a piece of garbage and flush it down the toilet. She eventually forgets the scissors in the room and heads out, only to see someone entering the lobby. However, as she follows the person and enters the lobby, she doesn't find anyone there. This gets her worried, but she ignores it and calls the restaurant Teddy suggested to get food delivered to her. After making the call, the reception phone rings, and as Gwen takes a closer look, she sees that someone in room 13 is calling her. However, as she looks at the board where the keys are, Gwen realizes that there's no one in room 13. She immediately picks up a knife and heads to the room, only to see that there's no one there. Even when she appears to be hearing a strange sound, it only turns out to be the rusty tap in the room. As she's about to leave the room, though, Gwen sees a ghost and immediately freaks out. While she's struggling to understand what she saw, Alice shows up and asks if there's a spare hairdryer in the motel. Gwen then offers to help her check the supply room for a spare. There, Alice asks what Gwen saw, but she says it's likely nothing because she's very tired after a really long trip. However, Alice jokes about how she loves ghost stories. While Gwen struggles to find the hairdryer, Alice leaves the door to help her, and it gets shut. Gwen realizes that they're locked in, and she tells Alice, who starts panicking. Gwen asks if she has her phone with her, but she says it fell into the toilet while she was dyeing her hair, and it's why she needs the hairdryer to dry it up. Despite realizing that they'll be stuck for a while because Teddy doesn't return till morning, Gwen tries to get Alice to remain calm. However, things get worse when the light goes off, and the rats in the room start moving around. Alice can't stop panicking, and as they wonder what to do, a delivery guy knocks on the door. They immediately get him to open the door, and even though he says he brought the wrong order, the ladies don't seem to care. While they're then eating together, Gwen asks why Alice is dyeing her hair red, and she says it's just something she's doing to rebel against her mom, who doesn't let her do anything fun. She also says it's why she left home. Gwen tells her that her mom is just looking out for her. She mentions that her mom was also a strict person, and even though she didn't like her for it, she misses her now that she's dead. She then advises Alice to consider going back home because family matters. Shortly after, Gwen says she's going out to get a bottle of Coke for them. While she's at it, she sees the strange car from earlier still lurking. This gets her scared, and as she takes the Coke bottles, she returns inside. However, as she's trying to see if the car has left, Alice startles her, and she ends up dropping the bottles. Alice then asks what's going on, but she says the rats are making her very clumsy. As Alice heads to her room, Gwen tells her to make sure she locks the door, and she says she will. After cleaning the broken bottles, Gwen hears someone approaching the lobby, so she picks up her knife to prepare for whatever is coming. However, it ends up being a couple, Warner and Birdie, who want to get a room for the night. Even though Warner sounds quite rude after hearing the price for spending a night, he still eventually pays and leaves for the room with his wife. Later that night, Gwen makes a poster to warn the guests from entering the supply room because of the rats. After she's through, she then heads to the pool to look at the sinkhole again. As she sees something inside, she tries to get closer but falls into the empty pool. She injures herself in the process and almost loses her necklace, but she picks it up. However, before she leaves, she sees a ghost coming out of the sinkhole. As she screams and tries to move away, Alice shows up to help her. When they're then inside Alice's room, she asks what Gwen saw. Just as Gwen sees Warner and Birdie leaving, she asks Alice if she has seen a car lurking around for a while. Alice asks what she means, and Gwen then mentions that there's someone named Walton Gray who killed her mom and sisters while she was younger. She says the man also tried to kill her, but she survived. Gwen also adds that Walton was sent to an institute for what he did, but she found out he escaped 2 days ago. As Alice wonders what she's trying to say, Gwen says she thinks Walton is coming for her because he sent her an envelope with her mom's missing necklace. She adds that she has seen him driving around, and it looks like he has found her. Alice then suggests calling the police, and Gwen says she will. As she's leaving, Gwen tells Alice to lock the door. Alice also mentions that she has decided to take Gwen's advice to return home the next day. While Gwen is returning to the lobby, she sees a ghost girl entering inside. However, as she also enters, Gwen doesn't see her anymore. Shortly after, Gwen sees the girl standing outside from the CCTV footage, but as she looks outside, she doesn't see anyone. As Gwen keeps checking the footage, the girl keeps coming closer until she enters the building. Before she gets any closer, Gwen quickly runs inside the inner room and locks the door. She then calls Teddy and accuses him of giving her a job in a haunted motel. However, Teddy says that even though the place is old, it's not haunted. Despite this, Gwen tells him that she'll be quitting when he returns. After the call ends, she hears someone calling her attention at the front desk. As she comes out, she sees the visitor and recognizes him as Walton. She instantly looks scared, especially as Walton says she looks familiar. Gwen denies it, and she then gives him a room key just like he wants. As she's about to reach for her knife, he almost catches her, so she suddenly decides to move him to room 8 since it's close to Alice's room. Walton then insists that she show him to the room. Gwen looks scared, but she still agrees to do it. As she enters the room, Walton asks for her name, but she makes up an excuse so she can go into the toilet to pick up the scissors she forgot earlier. While Walton is then looking out the window, as he seems to be expecting someone, Gwen stabs him with the scissors, causing him to fall. As he struggles to stay alive, he asks if she knows who he is, and she says he's Walton Gray. However, he says his name is Raymond, and that he has been her doctor for 12 years at a psychiatric facility where she escaped 2 days ago. Gwen says he's lying, but he then mentions that she was the one who killed her family. Gwen looks shocked and drops the scissors, but she suddenly remembers that she was actually the one who killed her mom and sisters because they didn't treat her well. Despite this, Gwen says Walton Gray killed her family, but Raymond says it's a made-up name. He also mentions that the name is an anagram of her name, which is Gwen Taylor. While she's distracted, Raymond tries to pick up the scissors, but she sees him. She then brings out her necklace, and as Raymond sees it, he says it's what she wore when she killed her family. Gwen doesn't respond to this, but she picks up the scissors and finishes off Raymond. Shortly after, 2 orderlies arrive at the motel on Raymond's orders to come and pick up Gwen. While they're waiting for Raymond, they suddenly see Gwen in front of their van. They look surprised because she has blood on her hands, so they decide to follow her as she enters the room. However, as they do this, she locks the door behind them. Meanwhile, Alice hears strange noises coming from room 8, so goes to check it. As she opens the door, she sees the dead bodies and realizes that Gwen is responsible. She immediately returns to her room and locks the door, but as Gwen still tries to come in, she jumps out of the window and tries to leave in her car. However, as she struggles to move the car, Gwen shows up and breaks the window near the driver's seat. Despite this, Alice manages to push Gwen away, after which she enters the hospital van. Unfortunately, the car key is not there, so she goes back inside room 8 to take it off one of the orderlies. As she's about to leave, Gwen strikes her with an axe and kills her. A while later, Teddy returns and doesn't find Gwen around. As he checks in open room 8, he sees that there is a red-colored stain on the bed. He looks confused by this, but keeps looking around for Gwen. He eventually sees her near the pool and asks what she's doing there. As she stands and watches him, she tells Teddy to come closer so she can show him. Weeks later, a boy named Cole is on his way to Ashford for college, but he eventually stops at Teddy's motel to rest for a while. As he gets there, the place looks transformed, and he stares at the lovely pool. Just then, Gwen shows up and welcomes him to the motel. She also notices his admiration for the pool and mentions that it just got fixed after the sinkhole that used to be there was closed. As Cole wonders what it must have been like, Gwen jokes about how the sinkhole was so big it could fit 5 bodies. Cole looks confused, but Gwen quickly changes the subject and tells him to come with her to the lobby so she can give him a room. As she then looks at the available rooms, she says she'll give him room 8 because it's her favorite. Cole looks pleased because he believes it's a good thing, and Gwen then offers to show him to his room. Before she does, she sees the ghosts of those she has killed, including Alice. She instantly looks terrified, but as Cole asks if she's okay, she says she is. As they both then walk out, Yogi falls from the wall, and it turns out that Gwen has been using the wall art to cover the blood stain on the wall, which is from another victim.